So a sumo deadlift is still a deadlift, and a deadlift is still a hip hinge, and I feel like that's a fact that a lot of people tend to forget when they pull sumo. A lot of people tend to get into a sumo stance and bend their knees without forgetting that they still need to hinge their hips. So that's the most important thing that I want you to remember when you are trying to pull sumo deadlift. Now, in terms of this setup for a sumo deadlift, I like to use the rings on the bar as a gauge. For me, I place my shins just on the inside of these rings. For you, your legs and your leverages might be a bit different, so you might feel a bit more comfortable going out a bit wider or a tiny bit closer, depending on how you feel. I highly recommend doing a bit of trial and error and seeing what feels best in terms of force production into the floor. Now from here, I'm gonna get my shins just on the inside of these rings here. And in order to set up for my sumo deadlift, what I do to begin with is I hinge at my hips. This is going to ensure that I'm not bending my knees too much, but also that I'm not keeping my hips too high as well. So from here, I'm gonna push my hips back, then my arms hang nice and long. And for the rest of this distance, I'm gonna bend my knees. From here, I can grab onto the bar. And what I'm gonna do is I'm going to progressively push my feet into the floor and drive my hips slightly up. This is essentially taking the slack out of the bar and sets me up for the next thing, which is a wedge. Now, what I'm doing here is I'm setting up my position, taking the slack out of the bar, and from here, I progressively drive my feet down to the floor and push my hips into the bar. In doing so, I wedge into the bar and I can pop the bar off the floor and then finish off my deadlift from there. Now again, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna position my feet first, just on the inside of these rings here. From here, I'm gonna hinge my hips back, get my arms nice and long, and bend my knees to make up the rest of this distance. From here, I'm gonna push my feet into the floor, drive my hips up slightly, and drive and go up from there. Now, another thing that's really important to remember during this whole process is how to breathe and brace. When it comes to breathing and bracing, what I like to do is keep it simple. And so what I do is after I breathe in, I hold my breath and think about pushing 360 degrees around my body. When should you breathe is a great question to ask yourself. I recommend doing it at the bottom. So from here, you're gonna hinge your hips, nice long arms, bend your knees to make up that distance. And from here, you're gonna breathe in, brace and push out 360 degrees around you. Hold that brace as you take the slack out, wedge, and up. If I was to do the slack pull and wedge all in one smooth motion, this is what it would look like. And that's how you do a sumo deadlift.